Correct.
So even if we just say, okay, fine, Nikola and Trevor Milton can they'll get it. They'll get it to price competitive, which is kind of insane because you think about it, like it'll never be price competitive because it takes natural gas to make hydrogen, like you said.
Yeah, it's super
That's
inefficient, right? Like,
yeah.
it doesn't make sense.
And you just said they need to make their walls thicker. They need to compress more, which is just going to cost more to make. But let's just say whatever.
And this is an important point. Their stations, if they build them, are going to cost a multiple of 4 to 6 times more than the CNG stations.
Okay, so that's the next thing I was getting to. Okay,
Yeah.
so if I am, so now let's say, okay, fine, they're going to get it price competitive, and you and I just talked about why it won't ever get price competitive, or at least true price competitive. Maybe that last 20% of carbon emission savings is worth it for us as a society.
Yeah.
So we subsidize that rest, and it costs the same as a diesel truck per mile. Okay. Now, how much do you think, like if I'm a Love's truck stop, so now the barrier to entry really is, if I'm going to buy this thing, I need a fueling stations basically everywhere or on certain routes, but it won't ever take the industry if it's only on certain routes. It's basically, for those of you that don't understand network effects, like it's almost all or nothing. And that's why there's one protocol for the internet, right? It's because it's a network effect.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
It's HTTPS. So my understanding of that is super limited too. So, but how much do you think it costs a Love's truck stop or a Pilot Flying J to build like a station? And, or maybe in your experience back then when you were selling, like how much did it cost for a natural gas station? And how much do you think a normal diesel station costs?
So yeah, typically you built the natural gas station right alongside the diesel pumps, and it was
so it's like another button on the thing?
No, it was a different dispenser.
Okay.
But it's like one row over, right? So the truck can pull into the diesel row, or the truck can pull into the natural gas row.
Okay.
And it was an incremental $2 to $2.5 million to install a CNG station. And I think LNG was more, and they had higher operating costs because you had to super cool the LNG.
Opposite, right? So CNG is more expensive. Is that right?
It was more expensive to run an LNG station than it was a CNG station.
Oh, so you have to super cool LNG, not CNG?
You have to super cool LNG. Yeah. In order to liquefy it, you have to super cool it. And you had to transport it to the station.
How does the compression work, by the way? Like, so in its natural state, is natural gas a gas or a liquid?
It's a gas. And so
it's a gas. Like if it was just at room temperature, it'd be gas.
You got it. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's coming out of the pipeline as a gas. And if you're at a CNG station, you're just using a rotary screw compressor or some way of compressing it into big tanks. And then you're
compressed gas.
You got it. And you're using differential pressure. These are real big tanks, high pressure. The truck pulls up. He's got zero pressure. It doesn't equalize, but it goes like this. And that's how you fill the tank of that truck, right? Mm-hmm. With LNG, you had to produce it somewhere, liquefy natural gas. Then you had to keep it cold. You had to transport it cold and then dispense it into the tanks of the truck.
Okay, so LNG is actually more expensive as a thing.
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay, yeah, so you're saying, how much did it cost if you're pitching Flying J, this location in Ames, Iowa? Yeah. I want a station here. How much do you have to spend to make that station happen? And there's plenty of room, right? Like let's just say
for which fuel type?
For natural gas.
For natural gas, $2.5 million. $2.5 million
for an existing station.
Yeah.
Okay, so and how much? I mean, so you're saying, but like when you're building a diesel one, how much? I mean, do you think it probably still costs $1 million?
Probably less because
Or I guess less because there's no compression or cooling.
There's no compression. They just fill up a big tank, and you pay for the dispensers and the pumps to pump it.
And it's room temperature liquid. Yeah, that makes sense.
Right. It's stable and so
okay,
less comparatively.
So $2.5 million per station. So in order to get the same network effect, like let's just say, how many diesel stations are there in?
You're going to get a number like 20,000.
Okay, 100,000 gas stations.
Yeah, I think if you Google on highway diesel stations, it's like 15 to 20,000.
Okay, so on highway diesel.
Yeah, that's
station.
Let me know how accurate I am on that.
Yeah, I know. Like you're trying to recall from like years ago.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not easily accessible, so I don't want to derail the conversation. But let's say it's 20,000, right? Let's say it's 20,000 diesel stations.
It's a lot.
And let's say you start getting network effects at half, right?
Yeah.
Right, like they just have to plan their trip out a little bit better, right? So let's say you need 10,000 stations times 2.5 million, you said, each?
Yeah.
Guys, that is $25 billion in capital.
Right.
To build the network. So if someone gave AMP CNG a check for $25 billion, conceptually you have the money to go do that, to build the network. So tell me, like, let's talk about how much money it's going to cost to do hydrogen stations. Like, what do you know about that?
So, and I'm not sure where Trevor got the 700 number from. They probably have done some really solid research on maximizing, the smallest number of stations with the biggest network effect, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that would be the smart thing to do. So he's probably figured out where exactly they need to be in order to get most of those 15,000 pre-orders to turn into actual orders.
So right? Just for everyone's benefit, he's basically said he wants 34 stations by 2024 and 700 stations within 8 to 10 years.
Yeah.
And we just said, like, in order to get network effects, you need like thousands.
Yeah. I think it's impossible that he could do 700.
Oh, so you don't even think he can do 1,000? Like, we're saying in order for like this thing to catch fire, you really need like thousands, right? Because you need the network effect of like, oh, I'm going to buy this truck because I can basically refuel almost anywhere. Like maybe there's 1/3 of the thing. And as a former Tesla owner and very soon future Tesla owner, like road trips are miserable. And you need to get to some level of like they're common enough that I can drive around and charge up. And it's like, and this article is telling me the cost for each station is 15 to 20 million.
Yeah, that's the number that I'm hearing. So what's the capital that he needs to do 700 stations?
700 times, it's called 15 million.
Yeah.
$10.5 billion in cash or debt. Yeah, like you can borrow the money, I guess, but.
Yeah. And what are we hearing now that they have in cash?
Post deal, they have 700 million.
Yeah.
So
and investment banking better than I do, but
yeah. So I mean, I guess anyway, whatever. Neither here nor there.
Yeah.
You need a crap ton of money.
You need a lot of capital.
And so, just so I know, why do you think it costs so much more? If it's a similar technology where you're handling a very explosive, compressed or hyper-cooled liquid, which it's not, right? It's just a gas. So super compressed gas.
Yeah.
Why is it going to cost them 5 to 10 times more, 5 to 8 times more than a CNG station? Like, why do you think that's the case?
Yeah, so I haven't looked at the schematics of their station design, but if you think about what they have to have there, they have to have a source of electricity. And so they're either building really large solar arrays at every station, or you're
That's not
tapping,
happening, right?
right? Or
Because you need a bunch of land for that, right?
you need a lot of land for it. Or you're tapping the natural gas pipeline, which takes a while to permit. You have to be in just the right spots, and you have to then turn that, run a generator, let's say, off of natural gas to create electricity to convert water to hydrogen. Or if they're going to use the process of just boom, let's go natural gas right to hydrogen, they can do that too, but that equipment is expensive. So you've got all those, plus you have to have the compression technologies to compress massive amounts of hydrogen.
But let's say they buy cheap hydrogen from the Hydrogen Council.
Yeah.
Why is it so much more expensive to build their stations than a natural gas station?
If they're getting, let's in a theoretical world, let's say that there's a hydrogen pipeline network in the United States, which there isn't.
Yeah, I mean, not even close.
but let's say that there was, and let's say that they could tap those pipelines and it was free.
Okay.
They still, at a minimum, would have to spend $2.5 million on compressing it, storing it, dispensing it, tracking payments, all the things that a fueling station requires.
A CNG one would.
Yeah, any station.
But why is it? I'm just not understanding why it's like 6 to 8 times more.
I have a feeling that
there's an article literally saying that it costs 15 to 20 million per station.
Yeah,
or maybe they're lumping in all the permitting costs.
Could be. The stations that they've built so far have had solar arrays, and maybe they're modeling it after what they've done so far.
Okay, interesting.
I don't know.
Okay, so it's going to cost a crap ton of money. They don't have that money.
It's going to cost a crap ton of money.
And, either they raise it, but let's say maybe they raise it. But I mean, even according to their plan, they get 700 stations in a decade.
Yeah.
And is that pace? Like how many CNG LNG stations are there in the US, you think?
Gosh, if I had to guess, I would say between 700 and 1,000.
Built over 15 years.
Yeah, I really don't
20
know.
years. Okay.
Yeah, it's just a total guess.
So he's basically saying, I'm going to become the CNG LNG market in a decade. That's essentially what he's doing, right? He's saying
that's what he's saying, and he's going to be the sole source provider. Is what he's saying.
There's no competitors, even if so.
There's no competitors. Yeah. So then, what's the moat, right? Like he's using technology from partnerships with all these other industrial companies.
Mm-hmm.
Those are all the components of his trucks. So anybody could build those trucks.
How do you convince a Flying J to let you spend the money to build a refueling station on their property? That's essentially.
Yeah, so that's where it gets really interesting, because when you look at the big energy companies, the big global ones, let's say BP and Total and ExxonMobil, they're all starting to say, yeah, we agree, we need to transition to a more sustainable economy. And so I'm going to just take them at their word and say, yeah. So let's say that they all said, we're going to make some major investments to make that happen. They would have to go and convince Loves and Pilot, Flying J, that this is what we want you to do. We know it's cannibalizing our diesel market, but we want you to do it. We support it. And we're going to even offer some money to help make it happen.
Gotcha. But let's just say
that
Flying J just loves, let's say they're on board. Let's just say Flying J and Loves, they just want to be
drinking the Kool-Aid.
Clean energy, right?
Yeah.
So you guys do it. You handle everything. You pay for everything. But here's your little spot.
Here's your spot. We'll lease this space to you, and you operate it.
How much time do you think it takes?
Oh gosh, it took us anywhere from 6 months at the very earliest to, in some cases, a year and a half just to get all the permitting, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that has to happen when you build, even if it's on developed property. So, let's just say a year. Let's just say a year.
Mhm.
Let's just say it takes a year to build a station. Maybe he does something really innovative and it's a lot less than that, but
Maybe it's 6 months and then 6 months and
it's at least 6 months. Yeah.
Okay. So let's say it's a year, right? 6 months for permitting, 6 months. How much to build? Like a few months to build?
To build, yeah, let's say another 3 to 6 months.
Okay. So like minimum 9 months to build.
Yeah.
So, okay, that's interesting. So that's just good context, I guess.
And that's mostly like the supply chain of all the things that you need. Right?
Okay, gotcha.
Because he's going to have that. He has to have that issue as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's like, guys, like even if he like, there's a question here. It's like, even if he does, and I love how like he's trying to be Elon Musk. This is hilarious too, right? Like, and he named it Nikola. Like, you're anyway, whatever. There's a part of me that's very like skeptical about blatant like gussing up a marketing thing. But even if he does, even if Nikola does reach CNG status, right, and you're saying a very optimistic dreamer CEO is saying 700 in a decade. I mean, he's the dreamer here, right? Right. People are like, oh, well, they're going to take the whole market. Well, no, even him, he's saying 700 in a decade.
Yeah. Let's just take him at his word.
Let's take it out of the word.
He executes perfectly.
The CNG market is only a $2 billion market. Let's say they sell and it's like $4 billion. Why is this company worth 25? So that's really, really interesting. I think the like one last kind of topic for this session, at least I wanted to cover was like, I don't really know. Oh, hold on. We had a list. So we talked about delays. We talked a little bit about the danger, but I think everyone understands the danger. I'm sure the danger approximates compressed natural gas to some degree.
Yeah, very similar. And there were some incidents, but very few of explosive.
Okay.